So this is more of a continued conversation that we have. No. It's more of a continued conversation. We have a small group here. We can continue the conversation that we were having. We have the recording to share with the rest of the group because I think that there's more interest in this topic than we have time for. And of course, people are then running to other sessions that they would like to see. So we help continue the conversation now, and then other people can check in later. I think we will keep it to 30 minutes. So that we can give the video team a break, and then also so that we can get you to your next talk, because Roelof is giving a great talk on creative AI later today. So I will then let you take it away in terms of, so some of the other keynote conversations have been more just, slightly less formal than when we're on stage, so that maybe we can have more of a chat.
Yeah, so maybe we should just start, since we were at so many. We should maybe just, let's have an introduction of everyone here.
If you don't mind.
If you don't mind. We can have just a nice informal chat.
I'm Gorak. I work as a business analyst. That's basically it. I mean, I use machine learning hardly ever, but do statistical analysis a lot.
I'm Christian. I'm a Python trainer located in Berlin, and I do translations for O'Reilly.
I'm Olga. I'm Chief Operating Officer at GoodAI, so I'm Marek's colleague.
Just in time for an introduction. We're doing a small round table since we're at
we could use that microphone as well for Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna. Great talk.
A brief introduction, Anna.
I work with data since 30 years or so. It's boring. I got more and more into this ethics thingy, also from a UI perspective. In German we call this Herrschaftswissen. This is how I started to tackle computers at all. And now this magic sauce AI scares me off, mostly because I know how stupid computers are. And I just, we need a codec, this has been told since years, where is it? So, and I totally agree, as developers, I write code, we are on the front line to reality. And if there are no codecs, because law is behind, which I also doubt, maybe we just don't know about law. Yeah? If we say, oh, my program, so there's no law against my program, there are some things that, do we know enough about law to say that this is legal, what we're doing? I think this isn't even clear because it wasn't tackled. So I want to meet lawyers about that. Yes, I'm really interested in this topic, and I like also to see a broad approach. Most of all, as a developer, I also want to take action, so bend, break. I was organizing last year's PyData, where we had Julia Evans here, who just broke Google's image recognition model, Queen Elizabeth as a shower carpet, and so sweet, to show people, oh no, don't be that scared. It's to keep critical thinking up. Yeah.
May I reply something? Because actually I brought a book here, which was by Josef Weizenbaum, called Kurs auf den Eisberg. And it's basically this book from the 80s, Weizenbaum being an MIT professor and being the inventor of ELIZA. And he's making the exact same point that we made today. And it's all these like the same issues, and they had them. He was actually much more concerned about the military in the book. We didn't when he touched upon it, which I think is interesting. Yeah, I mean, history repeats itself, but it's also the AI hype is really at a peak, or maybe beyond the peak, but really high at this moment. So I think it's good to at least talk about it again and think about it again.
I mean, I agree. I think that law is a very bad thing to wait for. I totally agree, having worked in many different startups. Law is something we tend not to really worry about until, these companies get up to a certain size, as you can see with Uber. we really doesn't give a shit up to until they are this kind of mega billion, and then they start to care about laws. Or actually, no, not still are already kind of too big to fail and start playing around with them. So that's the two options, as I see them. And sometimes you do work with law, but then you're one of the few, so it really works against you on the kind of general current economical system, like competitive economical system we have. So why would you be the kind of good student among the many? There's no real incentive there, except maybe a little bit of PR damage, but that can be well maintained. And I think the other thing is interesting, like, yes, we're talking about code of conduct or things which, there was one which mentioned 25 years ago, but it actually was never used. That's interesting. So it was there, it was an excellent kind of code of conduct for data practitioners starting AI, but it's more kind of yes, we inherently believe in this together, but what then, right? What do you do after that, after you agree that this is kind of wanted behavior or things you don't want to do? Like, what else there? Like, how do you make sure that these things are actually holding up? So to start thinking maybe practically, since it seems that this PyData is very ethics oriented, maybe we can think about, like, how could we bring life to such an initiative?
Because it feels like in Germany we have this strong culture of unions, right? And we have this history of people getting together and discussing things, and also, I mean, us now coming together, and it's weekend and we're still discussing ethics on a Sunday. That's very nice, and it's a good sign, and people do care. And it's really interesting also that there's so little shame, right? That basically a company like Uber would not do things because of shame, but only if they have to pay billions, right? I don't know if it's ever been better or different, but it's still something to consider. I mean, yeah.
And I think that this is part of the problem, and I've been doing some research. I have an upcoming talk about sort of the historical ethics around computing, and some of the research that I've been doing is these things that I've never heard of, people that I've never read about, and they're not the superstars, but they were asking some of these questions. Even some of the superstars, the types of concerns and skepticism they had later in their career, really turning on the idea of AI and really changing their perspective on the entire thing and what we should be allowed to build and not allowed to build. And I think that a lot of times we don't have this communal, cultural understanding of this history and these issues. We instead approach it every day like a new problem. And I think that because culture and history informs our own personal moral philosophy, that why would it not also then culturally inform ourselves as a group, as either computer scientists or data scientists, like that this understanding of the evolution of our philosophy around these things, that we are very short-sighted or tend to be somewhat short-sighted, and it's not often in school that you're forced to kind of learn some of this history, even if you study for quite a long time in some of these fields.
Yeah, because I said so much history is because the other thing is, it's also new and it's a revolution we're going through. We're not. This is quite boring. This is all bullshit. So what do we learn from this? If we all believe it, storytelling is big as well. So we should start to tell stories about this to get bigger. I just downloaded the dictionary, the modern dictionary of the history of ideas, started with information, and this information overflow, it's just too much. It was in the 1800s they were discussing the same, so looking back, finding stories could be an approach, making it playful. I love voice UIs, because for the first time ever in my life I see normal human beings recognizing how stupid computers are. Normally they say, I'm too stupid for this, you do. And I say, Alexa, you suck. This is a chance. I want that Alexa talks to Google, Home talks to Siri. There's so many things to show how stupid this stuff is. That could be even fun, right? Why not? I'd really like to collect, but especially history in the past. The Weizenbaum, Asimov, there are laws for robots, right?
I'm also curious, Marek, on your work because you're trying to build like more of this like general AI, and a lot of these like historians, like this was their goal, this is their dream, is we want to have these like general AI to help me make good decisions. I'm really curious kind of like why you started your company and kind of like what inspired you to kind of work on these things that I feel like a lot of other practitioners of AI have just given up on, and it's just like, I do computer-assisted driving, you know, or something.
So the reason is basically that I still believe since my childhood that intelligence is a way how to like optimize many of things, and if we want to optimize more things, we need to automate intelligence. And another way on how to look on this is that I see intelligence as the best leverage that we can have. You know, like either I can solve like space rockets, electricity, computer games, blah blah blah, or I can build AI that will solve all these things. So it's probably the most ambitious things from all these, but if we get successful with automating the intelligence, all the other things will be unlocked basically like instantaneously. And so this is the main reason that I think that we people are limited with our intelligence, and I mean we are still the most intelligent you know, like agent that is around here, but still as far as you know, yes.
According to the brain.
And we cannot really or there are some only few ways how we can improve our intelligence. Basically, one of them is to learning or learn how to learn. But we cannot change our hardware, we cannot change our software, we cannot clone, you know, we cannot do all these things. And also, a human has certain value which prohibits us from doing certain things. Like, for example, we'll never build like one-time spaceships, you know, with people. Like, you just send him there, and you don't care what happens to the astronaut or something like this. But with AI, you will do it. Like, it will be just machine, you know. And this can actually reduce the cost of a lot of exploration things, or a lot of science maybe will be much cheaper, you know, when you can automate the intelligence. So again, when I look on what could I be doing currently, I still see AI or AGI as the best thing to be working on.
I think it's definitely interesting because just I've been spending a lot of time reading a lot of these historical books from the 50s and 60s and their dreams, and being able to have, you know, conversation with an AI and have it have, you know, an understanding of empathy and all of these types of things. And then it seems like a lot of this conversation is almost completely gone from the conversation today. It's about optimizing and accuracy and how exactly perfect can I get for this specific task. So.
Maybe I'll add that actually our approach is maybe slightly different because the AI that we want to build is AI that is, we don't even know what tasks the AI will be solving. You know, that's the domain of where our AI will be operating is basically how to improve itself or how to improve its adaptability so that it's able to solve any task that may come in. So today, most people, when they talk about AI, they are talking about AI that can solve very specific tasks. Like people know exactly what the AI will be doing. But what we want to do is AI that we don't even know what the AI will be solving and what kind of architecture the AI will need in order to solve that problem. So basically a lot of our work is in meta learning and what we call gradual learning. So it's about the AI improving itself and improving its ability to adapt to new, novel, unseen tasks. And then of course the question is what kind of tasks will we need from the AI to solve, and how or what values to teach it so it's biased in the positive way. That's also a big topic for us. So actually I would not even talk for like my understanding of what we want to build is not about some function optimization or something like this, because I don't even know what is the function, you know, or what it may be. I would say that the function is actually the, like improve the adaptability of that AI. That's something I would say. So it's like maximizing the future options of tasks that the AI can solve. But still, I don't know what the tasks will be.
And I would like to add that the conversation is still ongoing with it's just in a different room maybe. You know, it's in the science technology studies. I think people are very concerned with these kind of issues. There's a wonderful book by Lucy Suchman, especially on these voice systems. And there's also, for instance, Adrian Mackenzie in Lancaster on writing on the performativity of prediction and what it all means. But what I'd also be really interested in, because now we've almost like an academic discourse again. What do the people who actually talk to clients, who actually talk to the companies, what they think and what they make out of this? For instance, maybe Andreas can pitch in, but also the people you who actually train large companies. I don't know who you train, of course, but what's your perspective? Is this too naive? Does this actually make sense, or are we stating the obvious?
So I mean, most companies I work with, they don't think about like general AI. They mostly don't think about normal AI either, because they're already struggling even getting the data in a shape where they can actually use it. At least most companies here in Germany that are not like very close to like the software model. You know, in the US we have of course like very big companies that are very good at doing these kind of things. But here I think the discussion is not can we have like some general AI to solve stuff, but how can we even like get our data in a form that we can work with that and do that in a way that's secure and so that we don't lose everything. So I think I'm not very qualified to answer like what would be the general direction in which we should go for that, because like the problems that I'm trying to solve are much simpler in that sense.
I can agree on that, because the people that I talk to, usually they have some very clear business function that they want to optimize. Like if you talk to a phone company, they want to, I don't know, optimize revenues from mobile phone calls on. And if you talk to some membership based service, then you want people to stay members for as long as possible. And each of these is fine in itself, but what we are trying to look here is the bigger picture. When you have one company that tries to maximize its own profit, it's no problem in itself. But if everybody in the society does that, then in my opinion, it becomes unethical. And since we are dealing with the data around all these bigger issues, then we necessarily have to view it from a wider angle as well.
Yeah, I want to throw a bit of a different point, but maybe it's all interlinked. We are talking about ethics in machine learning and open data, of course. And so far, to me, it seems like we've been talking a lot about what should be allowed, how do we improve our intelligence, how do we make our algorithms fair by not discriminating against anybody, and so on. And while all this is important, of course, I think so far the question hasn't been reflected what happens with my work when I publish a new thing. Like with every step, with every contribution towards a more able AI, I also contribute to workers being replaced by robots, or autonomous armed drones shooting people. And what is the responsibility I, as a contributor to all packages and AI, actually have? Like thinking of when Einstein researched, he didn't think of building a nuclear bomb, but actually he did in the end. So what I've been wondering all the conversation along is, what's the responsibility of each single person contributing to the whole open source and AI world?
I think that's a good question. So let's go into that after the. So I can say something about. So the clients I deal with tend to be big enterprise type companies and stuff. So when we talk to them, they're generally, or they're very much on the kind of end of like, yes, it's awesome, there's AI, it will allow us to do all kinds of new things, and we're trying to sort out ways of how we can develop our product to kind of help their need, which is mostly designers, being able to help designers be more creative more of the time. That's kind of the slogan, which means we focus on the creative parts and everything. which is inherently not creative, like creating variations of logos or whatever. You could call it automations, we can automate that, but that makes it already a very gray concept, right? So certain things of automation are inherently the right thing to do, right? In humane work, or it's also the work which is easiest to automate is the mechanical work. So I would actually argue that that's the work exactly which should be automated, right? Then you get in all kinds of other questions about labor and economy, like what then, especially in global inequalities where, most people actually do have, make a living on a lot of this kind of more sweatshop-like or kind of general labor-like relations. So but that's, of course, another discussion there. This happens in like big corporate settings. But the other part is, okay, yes, great, let's automate everything. We can fire everyone. We can just only have the senior, the creative directors, and we get rid of all the juniors. So that's the kind of two potentials. And I think the problem with those two choices is really that there are no real clear alternatives in the public discourse about what is possible with AI. So one of the things we are trying to get to, which is really kind of trying to get to this fundamental idea of augmentation, which I will talk about in my talk as well, which is having AI just as a tool which we use as humans, and it's just like any other tool. AI has always existed, it was always a tool, just now that it has been overhyped, and it will always be a tool, at least for a very long foreseeable time. So it means, what do we want to do with the tool, and what do we want to make possible?
It kind of connects to my favorite definition of AI, and it's from the Gödel-Escher-Bach book. It's basically AI is whatever hasn't been done yet. And the moment it's been done, we solve chess. Yeah, okay, then it's boring. It's yesterday's news. It's not artificial intelligence anymore. And I think that's a very healthy perspective on that. Still lots of problems we have to address, but less magic and less.
So I would focus on discourse is super important, telling alternative stories, and also holding firm to certain, if you have certain values or beliefs, stick to them as an engineer and find ways to explain them in ways which actually makes it valuable. I think there's a lot of value you can actually derive of being different. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to follow suit with, the standard. So what we're doing with creative AI is like we're exploring very different business models, which is difficult. But yeah, we found some ways of still how we can make it work. So it is definitely possible.
But just to touch on actually going back to like the idea of, robots taking over jobs and things. I mean, clearly it's already happening. And it reminds me of a very good quote from the original cybernetics book from back in the 50s, which is basically when we have to compete with slave labor, which is what the word he uses for robotic labor in this, we also then devalue ourselves to the level of slaves. And it's just this point where, okay, perhaps we as more affluent societies, we are like, oh, those are menial tasks that we don't want to do. But does this mean globally that everyone has equal access to these types of industries? And if we have robots in one country competing with humans in another country, then we get into really icky situations. And I think that this is a very good point and question, and something that we have to think about. It also reminds me of another quote from Weizenbaum, I believe, which is, do I care about how my research is used? Which is another one of these, like, should we have these licenses on research, or like how can, if I do research and someone uses it for a very evil thing, who is culpable, right?
But would a license prevent people from doing evil things? I mean, I'm a physicist, and my people have invented the nuclear bomb, and even the people that invented it wrote to the government to say don't use it on a civilian population, but the government still did. So I really agree with you that we should, as a creator, have some say about how the things we create should be used. In practice, it's hard to enforce.
I mean, you could think of a kind of defensive. I mean, in our talk, I attacked patents, but in this talk, I'll defend patents. So a few weeks ago, I saw the first archive paper with a patent number in it already. So it means that even when research is like pre-published, there's already a patent given out for it, or like. But you could argue that that's actually the right thing to do if you want to defend your inventions, right? Mm-hmm. So these patents could just as well be used for good use. Mm-hmm. Probably won't, but.
So I would just say that there is some action or some activity in AI research community where people are actually trying to influence the policymakers on these things. So it's similar to researchers for a certain area trying to influence, these things, some kind of like self-policing, and it's happening. So I think this is also a positive trend.
Is it on? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is the Manhattan Project conscience science dilemma. This is also valid for computer scientists, so I like that we start the debate. Physicists are good at this, because, yeah, we know. Coming back to the business, so this is so far away and so sciencey. This starts with those submit or review in every cheap app. Also this was not about AI, it was about machine learning, which is collecting data. And so even in single startups, yeah, the rating, how you collect them, the clean data, yeah, normally first rate, then send them to the app store and otherwise send feedback. This is normal, but this is where ethics already start. So I would want to get this away from rocket science back to our all-day work, where then the CMO and the CEO stand just before board meeting and want beautiful data somehow, pressure, and then collecting privacy, the Apache logs and storing. So it's not only AI, where does this start? Is data engineering storing duplicate, wrong, messy data? I just sometimes wonder, oh God, I know how messy the data is. It's not deduped and some bugs are in. If now some data scientist comes and runs some analysis on this and finds a great thing without knowing how wrong the base is, we should also care about this maybe?
So I think that reaches to the point of Françoise, right? Having a good code of conduct which takes this kind of high aspects of how we think about ethics and then tries to bring them down to kind of the company level and the kind of level of how do engineers then operationalize these concepts in their work.
Yeah, and I think you make the larger point, right? It's also about critical engineers. It's also about being a good citizen in the end, right? And it all connects to that. And it's like everybody every day has to make many, many choices. And you can decide to take an Uber or to take public transport, right? That's just a decision you make, and you make that every day, and you vote with your wallet in the end.
Anyone?
So I got one more thought, now we've had some conversation today, or heard some conversation about building values or ethical values, moral into an AI. Now, suppose it works. This is more like a cue for a science fiction writer at the moment, but suppose it works and the AI actually becomes better than we are. Because the AI will not throw their ethical values out of the window when it gets very hungry, for instance. Or someone offers it a lot of money. What's going to happen? I have not the slightest clue, but I'm very interested.
So, like we've been thinking about this quite a lot, and there are multiple answers. One is that what we would like to do is to actually build a human-level AI and like kind of like freeze it for a while on this level, then use it to find a way how to merge with this AI, like whatever that means, like some like nano machines or whatever, or just like some communication. So merge with this AI and then continue improving together with this AI as one system. And just like today, we all are some kind of cyborgs, like we are using all the technology, that were not here thousands of years ago, and we are okay with this. And And then the next part of the answer would be our value system would be still evolving, just like it has been evolving for past thousands or hundreds of years. You know, like all these kind of like women rights or slavery, and I don't know what other things has changed, you know, during in our value system during the time, but these things change, and I think they will change. And so basically, if we freeze the value system of the AI for forever, and we'll say like, these are the 3 Asimov laws or something like this, and they can never change, like never ever change, then actually we would put this AI or us, you know, in this like future society in a huge disadvantage, because the situation in coming hundreds of years or centuries or millennia may be different than what is today. Like, I think the stuff that people or this new kind of species will be solving will be quite different from what we are solving right now. Like, for example, right now we have human rights, we have some like assets, for example, and if the AI can clone itself, you know, like then who actually owns the assets? You know, like every clone, it gets divided or not, or like it's really complicated. So I think even these things will have to change, or I think even our view on death and things will change. And I have some ideas about this, but maybe they are a little bit not crazy, but I think like they are not as actual today, you know. So it's really not relevant. So to put this together, I think the value system will be changing, evolving. In few centuries, it will be quite different than what we have today. But if we get there continuously, gradually, like from one change to another, it will not feel alien to us. You know, just imagine that, for example, if some Romans would wake up today and they will come here and they will be like, okay, so where you have your slaves, you know, and all the other things. And they will be like, why you changed your value system? Like, you are so weird. But if they actually gradually went through the history, like people, it would feel very natural to them. And yeah, so that's the answer.
Cool, so I think we're out of time. So last, Françoise, is the code of conduct at Shopify, is that online? Do you have the code of conduct? Do you have it published online?
It's not published. Oh.
It's not published online. Would it be a good start of having a blog post on that?
Either a blog post or my slides will be online here, and they are copied in the slides.
Because perhaps it would be easy to just start a code of conduct initiative where kind of data science companies could just adopt them and change them and do with them what they want and make some kind of public, just as there are kind of, you know, code of conducts for conferences and things like that.
Yeah, it would be nice.